Okay, we got off to a good start to the season with a win against Utah State. I thought it was a great effort by our guys from start to finish. We weren't real efficient throughout parts of the game, but did enough to get the win and hung in there to the bitter end, and it was really good to get that win under our belt. Moving forward to Weber State, this week we've got a lot of things to address that we got to get better at, and that's our focal point. Obviously, is taking care of our deficiencies and trying to strengthen those. I think there were 7 or 8 Division I teams that got beat by 1AA teams this past weekend, so that certainly will get our players' attention, and we know that we got to play well. And Weber's coming off a big win, a lot of offense, rushed the ball extremely well, and really put up a lot of points. And so we've got our work cut out for us on defense. But like I said, more than anything this week, we got to fix what we're not doing so well. So.
Coach, can you talk about what you saw from Travis Wilson week 1? What kind of progress did you see from him?
Saw a lot of growth and maturity when you compare it to last season. Now, we saw that same growth and maturity in spring ball and throughout fall camp, but obviously he hadn't had a chance to show it in the game until this past week. But he made great decisions. He threw the ball very efficiently. He was over 300 yards on only 28 attempts, which is outstanding if it only takes you 28 attempts to get over 300 yards. Took care of the ball as far as not turning it over with interceptions. And just ran the offense. Did a good job of staying poised and making sure that the offense ran as we wanted it to.
After the game, you weren't very pleased with some of the aspects of your offensive line play. When you went back and looked at the tape, was it an effort thing? Was it a scheme thing? Was it an opponent thing? And is that easily fixed or cleaned up this week?
It wasn't an effort thing at all. There's no question that we had great effort from all the players throughout the entire game. So that was something that was a positive. It was really, we got to do a better job hitting movement with our offensive line. Utah State did a nice job slanting and gap exchanging, and we got to be able to pick that up. We didn't handle the blitz very well. They pressured us a bunch, over 50% of the time. And so we've got to do a better job at not only picking up blitzes but exploiting. When people blitz, you got to be able to have an answer and make them pay for that. And so those are 2 of the areas right there. I didn't think we ran the football violently enough. The run game needs to be more productive and more physical. But there was a lot of good things. I don't want to put a negative spin on it because there was a lot of good things we did in the game, but there's a lot to work on.
Coach, the loss of Kenneth Scott, obviously a big one. How much of a drop-off is it to Anthony Denham and Sean Fitzgerald, or do you expect eventually to get back up to where Kenneth was?
Well, the guys, Anthony and Sean that you mentioned, those guys stepped up big time in the game. They were our number 1 and 2 receiver as far as statistics after all was said and done, and so I thought they both responded. It's a big loss losing Kenny Scott. He's him and Drez, as we mentioned several times throughout the course of camp and game week. They're our 2 best receivers. They had separated themselves from the rest of the group, but both Fitzgerald and Denham both stepped up and really performed well for us Thursday night.
I know it's an obvious question, but it's been a couple of years since you've been able to get off to a 2-0 start. How big of a deal is it to get that mindset and get that winning track started before you open Pac-12 play?
Well, I think it's a big deal on a couple different levels. Number 1, as you mentioned, before Pac-12 play begins, and number 2, with the schedule laid out how it lays out this year. With a bunch of home games at the beginning half of the schedule, we need to gain some momentum, and I think it's important that we take advantage of the home schedule early in the season, because it gets very difficult as the season goes on.
Were you at all concerned with the missed opportunities of bringing down Chucky Keaton in the backfield in the pocket, or do you just attribute that to how good of a player he is?
Both. He's a tremendous player, and he's very difficult to sack. And we had him, I don't know how many times, a lot of times back there in the backfield, and he'd break 2, 3, sometimes 4 tackles or make people miss. And great players do that. I mean, he's a great player, and the great players bring a whole bag of minuses to the game, and they hand them out each play to defenders as the play goes on.
And then do you use the Eastern Washington upset and games like that as motivation so the team doesn't look past Weber State?
Without a doubt, and we'll address that in the team meeting today. There was, as I mentioned, 8, I think if our count is correct, 8 teams in Division I that got beat by 1AA. It's not 1AA anymore, FCS. FCS teams. So.
Kyle, you talked a little about Travis's pass efficiency and how improved that was. I think it was his second 300-yard game. Do you see more 300-yard passing games out of Travis? Can you just talk a little about his pass efficiency?
Sure hope so, and that's something that last year was lacking. We couldn't get a 300-yard throw game, and if we can continue to do that, and as I mentioned, get the run game where we think it can be, then I think we can be a pretty potent offense. But we got to keep working, and if Travis, one game doesn't a season make, but we saw some really good things for the first game out of all aspects of the throwing game with the protection, the route structures, and where Travis put the ball.
Is he just showing more patience, or what? What does he do?
Better decision making, a little more patience, more command of the offense. He understands concepts better than he did last year. Coach Erickson has streamlined things a little bit, so it's a little easier to grasp. And we're just trying to play to Travis's strengths. And he's a better runner than people give him credit for, as I've said over and over. And I think you saw that a couple times in the game on Thursday night, where he escaped the pocket and made some big plays and made a big first down for us in the 4-minute offense, running that Q power where he got the necessary first down yardage. So he's a guy that is much improved, and we need to see that trend continue.
Well, what's your read on Weber State? What was your takeaway from their win over the weekend against Stephen F. Austin?
A lot of offense. Over 300 yards rushing, 50 points. Receiver had a big day. The receiver went over 100 yards, and so it's the coordinator has Oregon background, and so very similar to what just about everybody's doing nowadays with the spread and the hurry up, and got to be ready and do things better than we did last week defensively by a long shot.